never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. I have got the honor and privilege of talking to Dana Karen Ciccone today. Dana Karen likes to be called DK, so DK Ciccone is a woman who, from an early age onwards, figured out that movement is such a powerful and beautiful remedy to so many problems, including chronic pain. So therefore, nowadays, training and thriving through her Pilates movement, it's beautiful. So I can't wait to talk to DK today. Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Goodness, as so many stories, yours starts not with a nice time. What led you to the insights that made you the DK that you are today?
Yeah, I have to be honest, I don't think I was a quick learner. I definitely, my first bout with pain was during a time as I mentioned, I was 13. Um, I guess traumatic things can happen at 13 to a lot of folks, I think. It's a very pivotal, difficult time in our lives when we're probably feeling a mix of unsupported and confused. And so I think looking back, that's why that moment when I felt a very strong pain in my back, which was during a musical theater performance, that kind of rocked my whole body. I think there was so much about the context of the pain that made it stick with me in a way that maybe it wouldn't have had it happened at another time in my life when I was feeling more secure in my body, more secure in my identity and my femininity and all those things that were confusing at that time. But at any rate, I had big dreams of being on Broadway, and this was a big performance with it was a local community theater. I mean, to be honest, a lot of kids have dreams of that kind of thing. I'll just have to assume I would have been good enough to be on Broadway. Um, but yeah, when that happened, it was the very start of a show, and I had a mix of, I'm sure, what was a really just incredible dose of chemicals from my sympathetic nervous system for performing, and just the gentlest of movements. And it was like a lightning bolt down my back. And then it kind of immobilized me for the rest of the show. And I tried my best. I mean, I did finish the performance through gritted teeth, but then spent the rest of the weekend with my feet up and on an ice pack and just confused. And I always, now looking back, feel also sort of sorry for my parents, because I'm sure that was confusing for them as well. It wasn't like I had a car accident or any sort of, just like you hear these stories of sudden onset of pain. And now that I've heard other people's stories, I know this is a very common situation of a sudden moment. You have a pain and it feels like it's going to be permanent, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. And that became sort of a pattern in my life through my teenage years and 20s and 30s, where severe pain would come and go. It would last for days. I could barely move. I could barely function. I could barely use the toilet. I mean, it was like taking over my whole life, and then it would just, leave like it came. And it wasn't really until my late 30s when I started to do some, I think, soul searching around my own struggles with anxiety and around my struggles with accepting my body the way that it is and not giving in to diet culture's pressures, which had been with me for decades. I think I finally started to see the ways in which my body had almost become a fundamentally unsafe place for me. Like my relationship between the vessel I inhabited and me as a human, they were like divorced, like two separate things. And so I then started to like have this experience of trying to weave that together, weaving together my physical like essence, my mental kind of state, my emotional experience, and trying to make that whole again. So movement was a vehicle. I mean, movement for me was just always something I loved, so it was natural for me. I think people probably find many vehicles for weaving those things back together, but it has been the place that I go to hear what my body has to say, because I have a tendency to ignore it like a bad spouse. So that is how I got to be the DK I am today.
Oh, wow. And we know issues lie in the tissues, and the body does keep a
Yes.
score. We know
Yes.
that. And there's some wiser men than me have written lots of books about that. It's interesting that from the word go, you describe being confused and not fitting in. And that is, I think,
Mm,
a given when we are 13. But for so many of
mm.
us, A, it can start earlier, and B, it doesn't stop when you're 13. It
No.
stops maybe when
Oh.
you're 30 and then not.
It,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Or yeah, when you stop breathing. I'm still confused. I mean, I think, it is a journey of rediscovery all of the time. I mean, it has been for me anyway. I don't know if other people have that same experience of there's just constantly new aspects I need to heal. And I don't know if there will ever be a done, if there will be a healed. I'm not sure. I guess all you can really do is sort of put one foot in front of the other.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I think we all need to accept that life is full of challenges, obstacles,
Yes.
and new trauma. The moment you
Yes.
think you've got it sorted, the universe is just thinking, oh, hey, look at DK. Look at her. She thinks she's got it. Now let's see what we can throw at her now. Uh, it,
Yeah.
and I think we need to accept that. And I think those of us who can adapt most and can lay down a good foundation of resilience, of self-love, of self-worth.
Mhm.
Once we achieve that, at least that foundation, whatever then comes new as an obstacle, we can put down new building blocks of skills, tools, of further movement, of changes in nutrition, whatever is required at that time for you to move forward. I think it's a privilege.
Yeah, and I think for me a big part too, I mean, that was really helpful in my experience, but also recognizing that the system is sort of the problem also, that we have created a modern society that is forcing us to process way more information than our brain ever really evolved to process. And so that is already kind of a hotbed for challenges for the nervous system. And so if you have any predisposed sensitivity or, adverse child experiences or any of those things that kind of open you up to an even more sensitized threshold, I think it was important for me in my journey, and I've with many of the people I work with, to also recognize when you have pain, when you have experience of anxiety, to kind of stop the self-blame and to be able to say, okay, a lot of the factors that are contributing here, even if it's just the intensity, not the underlying root cause, but a lot of the intensity is being kind of amped up because of things that are outside of my control, political things that are outside of my control, you know, demands from other people, expectations from other people that are outside of my control. And I think that can be a really healing thing as well. But even as I say it, I laugh because I don't think I've 100% internalize that, but I think it's important to recognize that there are many ways in which we're set up to fail when it comes to preventing chronic pain or chronic stress.
Very nice. And you're quite right. There are root causes for pain. And often enough, there are very real good
Mm,
reasons. Trauma, God forbid, cancer, God forbid, those kind of things that are red flags for a doctor. We always check for those kind of things because it's all quite nice to say, well, let's work with Pilates or let's do X or let's do Y, whatever treatment modality we think might be appropriate for a client or a patient. We always rule out the nasty things. So I think that's
mm,
sort of an important first step. If you guys are out there in pain, just make sure that you're
mm.
actually checking that
100%.
that it's not something silly. But then ask yourself really, what is going on here? And is it really just one muscle being a bit stretched? Or is there not just a lifetime of stress that your body has been trying to somehow get through and has sent you heaps of messages and you just didn't listen? And it finally pulls the big one, the pain. and makes you stop. I've
Hmm.
told you for 20 years, stop.
Yes. Yeah. That's a toxic relationship. Stop walking in that door. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh gosh.
Uh-huh. And I think this is so important that we recognize that. So there is definitely the function of pain is not just to tell you about a broken bit in your body, but it also can tell you a lot about broken bits of your soul and of the other parts of you that we can't easily image or easily take. I don't know. Well, with history we can get it, but not with any imaging
Yeah.
modalities such an MRI. Oh my
Yeah, I think
goodness.
it was an important part of my healing too, I went into just researching pain, like trying to understand it for myself, especially once I really started to get the messaging from my clinicians that like, listen, there's nothing wrong with you. I mean, I did at one point along the way have a herniated disc in my low back, but the pain continued far after that was really
Mm,
resolved. And as we know in the research, you could pull 50 people off the street and put them in an MRI and they probably have disc herniations and bulges anyway. So, there's nothing saying that that was what actually caused the pain. But when I started to recognize that pain was like my brain trying to help me.
mm,
It was like, you're in danger, there's some threat to you. I feel the threat, and so I'm giving you this sensation as a means of letting you know. And that was really important for me in my journey because again, like I had this adversarial relationship with my body, kind of you're not showing up in the way that I need you to, and I'm angry about it. And so really sort of making amends really helped it helped to understand that pain was really my nervous system functioning correctly, and I would sure be in a heck of a lot of trouble if, I could put my hand into a flame and didn't feel anything. That would be a short lifespan. So,
exactly.
I think it's important to understand that, yeah.
Oh, beautiful. And it is so amazing because if you're honestly talking to people, doesn't matter how they show up, you look at them, think, wow, they really got it together. Look at them, they're successful by all measures. Yet, if you allow them to drop their mask for once
Mm.
and actually talk honestly about what is going on, you will find to your amazement so many of us are struggling with self-worth, with self-love,
Oh my
having
gosh, yeah.
been pulled in all directions for such a long time that indeed we are just about holding it together, barely functioning despite what kind of letters you have got to your name or however else you measure success. So if you're
Mm.
feeling out there like that you're confused and that you're not right, welcome, welcome to the club. It's a brother and sisterhood that literally
Yeah,
spans the globe, and there are so many of us who feel exactly like that. That's normal. So,
absolutely. And I don't know, do you feel like that's gotten worse after COVID? Like in a
mm,
way, our support structures
mm,
I feel like our support structures, they were already jeopardized by social media,
mm,
but I think we have unlearned how to lean on each other as human beings in a way that was essential to human survival for
mm,
millennia. And
mm,
um, we kind of unlearned it a little bit. So,
mm. I think not just yeah, well, COVID, I think certainly has been playing a part. I think we were on that journey long before. I think
yeah,
our
that's true. Yeah,
social engineering and the way we have been living has been not good for us, I think, as a society, certainly in the Western
agree.
world, and we are now paying the price for it. But
Mm.
the past does not equal the future. Just as much as the pain in your past was holding you back. It took a few dark nights of the soul. And for some of us, that's a few decades of dark nights of the soul until you come to a point where the universe conspires and delivers you the teachers that you need in whatever
Mm.
form they arrive. And here you were suddenly discovering movement. How did that come about?
So, I mean, obviously, having been in musical theater, dance was a big part of my identity as a young person. But then when my back became, flaring up intermittently, I had to kind of put that aside. I couldn't do it in the way that I wanted to anymore because it was unpredictable. And so then I went to, college, did my degree, and kind of ended up in the working world. And I had really lost connection with that part of myself. But when my disc herniation happened, and I really just felt for months that I couldn't really move, it was like it was calling me back. I needed to move my body. I needed to feel connected to my body. And someone honestly just like offhandedly said to me, I've heard Pilates is good for backs. It was really as simple as that. And I took a Pilates mat class. This was 2007. Um, and I just loved it right away. I mean, and I'm not one of those people who just, I found the thing and now the thing is suddenly magical, blessed, thing that's universally better for everybody. But that was the thing I needed in that moment. Whether it was, I think it was a combination of the full range of movement that's available in the Pilates practice that kind of gets you going in your joints in all directions. It also has both a strengthening and a breathing and stretching component to it. And there's a mindfulness to it that was just really, really healing for me. So I went really pretty regularly, and it became an important part of my toolbox. But like you said, I mean, I did along the way get connected to different physios who, were helping me with one pain or another. I mean, the pain would kind of migrate around my body. It was a knee thing, a foot thing, a hip thing, a back thing, and which again is a sign that, it's not really a tissue situation. It's really something happening that's within the nervous system. But I learned various things from folks, different ways to cope with pain when it happened. And really ultimately I ended up so lucky because I had a team of people who were all coalescing around me at the same time and really cheering me on and helping me push past where fear was inhibiting my movement. And that was probably the biggest crossroads for me, and where I started to really understand for helping my clients because later on I had a corporate career. Later on, I became a Pilates instructor myself, opened my own place. Um, but kind of seeing the ways in which being afraid of movement was also fundamentally causing pain and causing people and myself to believe I was incapable of things that I was actually physically capable of, and getting the courage and having the people cheering me on to formulate movement programs that actually made me try things I was afraid of totally revolutionized my relationship to movement and
Beautiful.
and actually my faith in my body. So, Pilates has been the through line in terms of the practice that I turn to in times of feeling great and also in times of when I've had a challenge, but it's so many pieces on top of that.
I love the way you describe it because it's really, on the one hand, it is a physical movement. You move your body three dimensionally, and it's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. That's exactly the way we need to retrain our body. Many of us make not necessarily a mistake, but many of us focus on, for example, bodybuilding, on a very succinct development of one muscle or one look there
Yes.
to fit with society's norms or your own imagination, so to speak. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you look at a bodybuilder, often enough, they're actually not very good at CrossFit or at other more functional movements
Right.
where simply they have not included the wholesomeness of a different system, such as Pilates or such as other movement systems. It's intriguing. Okay. And wow.
Well, and there's nothing about bodybuilding that protects you from pain. So, I mean, if fundamentally we're talking about movement as a vehicle for pain being the
Yeah.
underlying thing, then um, I would venture to guess there's a lot of bodybuilders who also have some pain. So I think there is something to be said for like movement methods that help you connect to your body and
Mm.
almost act like a protective mechanism for you to listen when maybe you shouldn't do that next set of another 10 reps at another 10 pounds. Like maybe it's time to stop.
Yeah, that's a very wise point, isn't it? But you also already, well, maybe the very first thing we spoke about was really mindfulness and the way how our mind and how those non-physical things can start coming into the physical things. In other words, pain starting to
Mhm.
come up there. And I think the same is with regards to healing. How many times do you see tears? And not tears because of pain, but tears because of mental breakthroughs in your class?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's such an interesting question. Um, quite frequently, actually. Um, and if it's not a tear, it's sort of almost like I don't want to say it's a positive panic. That sounds kind of strange, but it's sort of a moment of of breaking past a barrier that almost causes the person to kind of want to kind of slip back into their normal behavior. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's very straightforward. Sometimes it's because I'm asking them to do a movement that they thought was out of bounds for themselves. Either or, for whatever reason, because like I had
Mhm.
someone who was hit by a car in a crosswalk and had, tons of surgeries and complex regional pain syndrome. And, for her to start loading and adding resistance to that leg was just, you know, it really took her a whole body effort and whole mind effort. And when she finally got to that place, there were a lot of tears. And then in other cases, it's trauma, people
Mm.
who have had bad falls. And so I'm asking them to revisit a backward leaning position and realizing that they can get back up and they're in a safe place, and that can be like a really powerful breakthrough for people. And certainly I think I cry in, you know 4 out of 10 movement sessions of my own, because that's where I can commune with my body.
Yeah.
That's where I'm able to connect to the like core wounds that are just not in my prefrontal cortex, to
Beautiful.
put it, in that way. But yeah,
Uh,
it's an incredible honor to be able to help people through that experience for sure.
and we know that sometimes trauma is so hard to put in words. It's not
Yes.
for nothing that art therapy, for example, is used for PTSD in warriors. So the cliche of a warrior painting a picture, there's actually some very good science behind that, because uh, it's hard to express emotions, certain emotions through words, but you can express it much
Hmm.
easier with your creative side of the brain. Equally, don't be surprised, therefore, if your body moves in certain ways and you allow muscles that are incredibly tense because of whatever has occurred in
Mm.
the past, you suddenly move them and they start to contract and then relax. Don't be surprised if you've got waves of emotions, waves
Hmm.
of sensations coming over you that you are not used to. And that's especially so hard for us because most of us are running a mile to get away from the negative emotions. So
Right.
here
And
you,
and I think that's part of that mindful movement challenge, is that, when I'm working with people, I don't let them off the hook. I mean, it's not like I tell them to do the exercise 5 times. I mean, especially folks, my real chronic pain folks who are in the beginning of their journey. It's, how does
mm,
this feel? And
mm,
where are you experiencing this? And is this a
mm,
stabbing sensation, or is it a light sensation? Or is it, I'm
mm,
asking for, what color is it? I'm asking for them to find ways to be in their bodies as the bodies are doing things. And that can often be a place that they've refused to go for a long time because there's stuff there that they don't want to sit with.
mm.
So yeah, just as you're saying, I mean, sometimes the things that we don't want to sit with, they come up in movement.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's
No, it's a beautiful thing.
isn't it? It is, I think, a really lovely way for us to move forward and to actually start to experience those things and be with those things. Let that be the emotion of fear. Let that be the sadness. Let that be
Mm.
whatever memory it is. The moment you accept it and say hello. Yes, you're not really a friend, but you can stay for a moment. And then say, okay, now thank you very much. I think I got the message, and send it away. That is a skill. Wow. And however you get close to such a revelation, may that be through movement, may that be through hypnosis, may that be through whatever is,
Mhm.
whatever path leads you there. Guys, it is a gift. It is a true gift. So grab it with open arms, even if it's a bit of a thorny gift and hurts you a little bit for a moment. But I promise you, this feeling will go. It will change, and you will change. You will never be the same again. You will transform if you get it, or if you have the experience in a kind of guided way with someone who is by your side. To do it alone
Mm.
can be a very scary place. So I think that's the nice thing for people like DK to be there, and for you to be in a community, so to speak, even if this community is two people. That's just fine. Alone is a very lonesome place sometimes.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. So there is clearly all that beautiful emotional side there. There's the practical side there. Uh, but there is also the self-improvement side there. You
Mm.
are
Mhm.
big about your why.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think, again, a lot of this has to do with my my feelings about diet culture and the fact that for many of us, I mean, honestly, I think everyone has been influenced by diet culture in some way. And I say diet culture specifically the pressure that comes through the media and other means to make you feel like your body is no good and you are of no value until you can fit a certain aesthetic mold that may just not be achievable for your DNA.
Mm,
And so I think for so many of us, movement was a punishment. It was an atonement for sinful eating. It was an obligation. It was it just went right on the list of like, I have to do my laundry, I have to go grocery shopping, and then I have to go to the gym. And so that is not a path to having a productive relationship with movement. A lot of people that I meet with who come with pain and they're like, they hear that I help with pain, but then they say, I've always hated movement. I just know there's something underneath that. And it's almost always because they felt unwelcome in a certain fitness space, or they felt obligated or and they felt like they could never live up to this ideal. And so for me, I just always want to focus on, well, then why are you here? I mean, I'm sure that you want to move your body in some kind of way that is really connected to your values and your
mm,
goals for your life. And for most people, it has to do with experiences and family.
mm,
So it's, can I get on my
mm,
floor and back up again when my grandkid wants to play with me? Can I get on a plane and go visit, a family friend in Maui? Or can
mm,
I go on that hike of the Amalfi Coast that I've always wanted to go on? For most people, and that's, you can see they're connecting to it because there's like this visceral, it's important to me to be able to do those things. And so I think we're often moving for the wrong reasons, and many people don't have that connection to that why. And I really work with clients in the beginning to kind of be clear about that, because you're just not going to make a habit out of a thing that you don't love doing if you don't understand why you're doing it and how
mm,
it connects to the thing that you really care about. So that is important to me. Also, I think it's important to design movement programs that get you to your why. So if someone tells me, and this is of course where the Pilates comes into play. So I have someone with a double hip replacement, lots of low back pain and other pain, loves golfing. He just, he will walk through the pain to go on the golf course. He just loves it so much. So then we build a movement program around helping him get stronger in like rotation and helping him feel stronger in walking, helping
mm,
him feel more stable in his hips so that he
Mm,
feels stronger in those muscles, and there's not that sense of like, is my hip going to go out?
mm,
So that also just helps me as a movement practitioner to kind of back into, okay, what are the movements I'm going to give you, and how do they relate to your why? And then
mm,
it just, I think it just, we have to give meaning to people for the movement. I mean, just telling people you need to move more, you need to be more active, you need to have more active minutes, or just take a walk. If they don't care about walking and walking is not an important part of their lives, like it's
mm,
just not going to resonate. And I think many people can, I mean, I've yet to find someone who can't find something that is really important to them to hold on to or to achieve in
mm.
their physical body because of something or someone they love.
Beautiful. Find your why and then find the how. Exactly.
Mm.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. So,
And I think what's important to also mention, sorry,
please.
is that, I don't claim to be any kind of like a magical healer. So we are mortal and we are aging and we will come across pains, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, pain will come, it will go, it will
Mm,
come, it will go. And I think what's important is, the why keeps you going even when you're not super comfortable. The why helps you recognize when is a pain a real danger in my body and when is
mm,
it just sort of a contextual blip. And so I think if the ultimate goal is to be mobile, my goal is that people can do the movements they need to do in order to have a fulfilling life
mm.
with or without pain.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
I think that's just like a bit of a mindset shift.
And that's huge. It's absolutely huge. So how can we find ways to move in a more holistic way? Let's put it like that. And if there is no Pilates studio around you, because you are remote, you're living on a farm, and next studio, next town is 2 hours away, how can we incorporate such movements? Well, maybe farm is a bad
Mm.
is a bad example because there are so many movements there
Yeah,
in
you're
daily
probably doing a
practice.
lot of movements on a farm.
I was
Yeah.
about to say bad example, but let's find a bit more sedentary kind of lifestyle, but no Pilates studio next to you. What can people do? What should people actually look out for in healthy movement?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's two things. First of all, there's the movement that you will do. So that's the most important movement, the movement that gets done. So
Yeah.
I think it's important that we explore and in a lot of ways tap into our youth. I mean, I'll bet there was something you loved as a young person, and we lose touch of that sometimes, tumbling in the grass or
Mm,
climbing, or I mean, I think there are many things that we take for granted that are movement behaviors. Like a lot of folks will say, I don't do any movement, and then they're
mm,
like, I gardened all weekend, and I'm like, um that's actually pretty mobile. So
mm,
I think finding just experimenting and exploring
mm,
and tapping into the things that bring you joy.
mm,
But there also is an element, and I mean, for everyone, but especially for women as we age, we do need to have resistance training of some kind. We need to pick things up and put them down. And however that happens for you, however,
mm,
however you're able to add strength training into your life, I mean, I think finding some way to do that is really important.
mm,
People can, of course, reach out to me and I'm happy to refer, and I don't think I would never be the person to say that Pilates is the answer. I mean, I think there are many ways to move, and, martial arts and weightlifting and aerobics and jumping on trampolines and boxing. And I mean, there's
mm.
loads of ways to move. And I think it takes some creativity.
Beautiful. Exactly. But there are so many ways that we can actually just consciously make little decisions. When you're
Yes.
boiling the kettle to wait to get for your coffee, you can just stand there, or you can do
Hmm.
some leaning push-ups on the bench
Hmm.
where you are. There's nothing to stop you when, let's say, you've got a shower and you actually want to after the shower maybe get the water off. Well, make that
Hmm.
squats. Well, from top down,
Oh, I
but with
like that
proper
idea.
squats.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yep.
that's 10 squats. When you brush your teeth, well, you don't just need to stand there. Why don't you go into a deep squat and just hold it there. And whilst you're brushing your teeth, for a minute, you hold a squat. Um, there's so many little things. Once you
Yeah.
actually teach your brain to think about movement as an opportunity and as a little win in the day, that's where the magic happens. There's so many
Hmm.
ways how we can actually incorporate movement in our daily patterns that we simply have not done.
Yeah.
Why? Because maybe there are wrong core beliefs. What will people think of me if I suddenly drop down into a plank? Well, they probably say,
They'll think
"What?"
you're pretty cool.
Exactly, exactly. So think of it as an opportunity for yourself, but also to make this world a bit of a better place by role modeling a different attitude towards functional movements. And I'm not saying sport, I'm not saying any kind of
Hmm.
other things that maybe trigger you. No, just you being a more whole being, a better human, a human who is more resistant? Oh, no, resilient, a human who can go out there and face the challenges of life because you have got a certain self-confidence because you know you can actually, get down to the floor and get back up without any problem.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you brought up squats because that's one of the most important functional movements that we
Mm,
have and that we can practice because, you know, one of the number one reasons that folks end up in assisted living facilities as they age is the inability to use the toilet by themselves.
mm,
So being able to squat not only means you can get down the toilet and get up, but it also, you know, pelvic floor muscles
mm,
and stability. So so important. And so many
mm,
people take that out of their day to day without even realizing it. So I
mm,
often tell people to do, you know, even sit to stands.
mm,
If a squat without support is not possible, sitting and standing up about again
mm.
um, is really great. But yeah, that's probably one of the most important things that you could do.
There you go. See, guys, there's so much where we can change, and it doesn't need a gym membership. It doesn't need money. It just needs a willingness to be more active. And once you
And
get
a
in,
belief that you can do it
yeah,
also. I think it is hard for people who haven't in the past to believe that that's something that's for them.
mm,
You know,
nice.
I think that's important that people. So I think what's amazing is that the human body is incredibly adaptable. We know this so much more now than we did, you know,
Mm,
even 10, 20 years ago, both the adaptability of the brain and how
mm,
it can learn things and adapt new behaviors, but the body too. I mean, you see these stories. You know, the internet is horrible most of the time, but I love seeing stories online of folks who've taken up deadlifting in their 70s and they're, you know, picking up bars full of weights. And I really hope for that for our future. And I hope that some of that stigma is going away and people are
mm,
gonna, you know, walk in and start making the gym their own. I mean,
mm.
there are stories of people who have developed incredible muscle mass, having never done exercise before. So I
Certainly.
think we get this impression that our bodies are fragile, you know, that we, you know, and it's really not true. Like you don't have to put yourself on a shelf as you age. I mean, you can just keep lifting, a muscle loaded will develop. And um, you know, I know I was
Mm,
told at various times of injury, you know, don't bend at the waist, you know, don't do this if it hurts, don't sit for too long. And I think in an interest of helping people be safe, like it kind of the pendulum swung a little too far. And so now people feel like they can't do anything if it hurts them. They have to put themselves in bubble wrap. And so
mm.
um your body is actually capable of doing so much, and that's also I think a message that I hope really gets across to folks is you won't know until you try, and I really encourage you to try, find ways to try,
Yeah.
experiment with trying new and challenging things.
Fantastic. Oh, DK, you're amazing. Thank you so much for bringing that breath of fresh air to the world. And this really, you're a change agent. You are a woman who shows that there is hope and that there is help out there. That is something that needs to be heard loud and clear. And for what you're doing, I thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, it's important to me. I know what it feels like to feel hopeless. I know what it feels like to wonder,
Mm,
to get up in the morning and go, is my body going to be there for me today? And
mm,
so I think it's important that we get those messages out there that there is hope and
mm,
there's evidence of hope.
mm,
And I thank you for what you do as well and bringing so much joy and
mm.
creating all this community for all of us. We need each other in the
Brilliant.
human race.
Oh, absolutely. DK, if people want to find you, where can they go? Where shall they look for you?
So my website is movementremedies.org. And
Mm,
I'm also on Instagram at movement_remedies.
mm,
And I welcome emails to dk@movementremedies.org. I love to chat with people.
mm.
And yeah, let's
Brilliant.
connect.
Guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast. DK's data is down there. Her links are down there. So don't be shy. Check her out. And whilst you're down there, please press the like and subscribe button and tell your friends about our show. And maybe we can all work together to make this world a better place. DK, thank you so much. Look after yourself, okay? And you guys
Thanks.
out there, look after yourself and live with intention. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.